Hey you, and welcome to lesson 29. Today we are going to be talking about the double comparative using the and the. Also, we will talk about sentence structures in English, how many structures are there, and we will cover the third structure, which is the complex sentence. So without further ado, let's get to it. Welcome to lesson 29. Today we will talk about double comparative with the. Okay, what does that mean? First of all, I used the wrong tool. Let me just fix this real quick. So double comparative with the and the. All right. So double comparative are phrases commonly used in English to express proportionate increase or decrease. To say that when something increase or decrease, that causes the other thing to increase or decrease. So you say, if this thing increases, this thing will increase. But if this thing decreases, then this thing will decrease. Okay, so we use the double comparative. So let's take a look at how to use this thing. The more is the first way we use the double comparative. The more you study, the more you learn, the more you work, the more money you make, the more you travel, the more experience you gain. Okay? So, let's take a look. The more you study, the more you learn. This is too big. All right, hold on. Let me just fix this tool. Okay. All right. The more you study, the more you learn. The more I see her, the more I like her. The more help we give them, the more they request. The more I watch my diet, the more weight I put on. The more money he makes, the more expensive things he buy. The more we work, the more we earn. All right, so the more. All right, now another way, the more the less. It means, okay, so we say if this is more, then this is more, but if this is less, and this is less. We can also use it if the more we do of this, the less we have of this, and then the less we do of this, the more we have of this. Okay, so let's take a look at the second type. The more, the less. The more I read, the less I remember. The more the sales assistant explains, the less I understand. The more food I see, the less appetite I have. The more we spend, the less we save. The more I worry, the less I sleep. So here we have the more, the less. Okay, now we'll talk about the less, the more. The less you do of something, the more you get of the other thing. So let's take a look. The less we spend, the more we save. The less I concentrate, the more I forget. The less we worry, the more relaxed we become. The less people listen, the more impatient they become. The less you exercise, the more weight you put on. Okay, now just like we can say the more, we can say the less the more, we can say the more the less, or we can say the less the less. The less you exercise, the less healthier you'll be. Okay, so same thing. So even more, less, more, less. All right, next one is we can make comparison using adjectives, adverbs, and nouns. Like the older we grow, the wiser we become. Right? So we don't have to be confined to less and more. We can use other words too. You can say the older you grow, the wiser you become, the higher you climb, the colder it gets. Okay, let me just change this tool real quick. Yeah. No. All right. The higher you climb, the colder it gets. The younger you begin to learn languages, the easier it gets. The angrier the teacher is, the worse I feel. Don't do that. That's mean. The darker the berry, the juicier it is. Oh, the juicier, sorry. The darker the berry, the juicier it is. The brighter the sun, the happier people feel. Not in tropical countries, it gets really hot. The colder the weather, the hungrier I am. The more educated women are, the later they marry. That's true. The earlier you leave, the better it is, and so on. So we don't have to be confined to less and more. We can use other vocabularies. All right, double comparative with adverbs. The more carefully, okay, so we can use adverbs as well, not only adjectives. So we can say the more carefully you plan, the better the results will be. The harder you work, the more rapidly you'll grow, or the more rapidly you'll obtain results. The faster you walk, the more quickly you'll arrive. The richer a person is, the more privilege they enjoy. The more ideas you have, the more projects you will develop. All right, now, okay, so now let's move on to a little bit of grammar and talk about the sentences in English. We have 4 types of sentences in English. You have the simple sentence, a compound sentence, a complex sentence, and a compound complex sentence. All right, so first sentence is the simple sentence. Simple sentence is basically one thought, okay? It's just one thought, one idea. It's a very simple sentence. And then you have a compound sentence that is basically 2 simple sentences joined together by using a coordinating conjunctions. Remember coordinating conjunctions? You know, fanboys, for, and, so, because, yet, or, those ones. Okay, so consists of 2 or more simple sentences closely related in thought. Then you have a complex sentence. A complex sentence consists of an independent clause and at least one dependent clause. So you have one independent clause and one dependent clause. Dependent clause and the independent clause which depend on the dependent clause, right? Oh, actually the other way around. You have the independent clause and the dependent clause that depend on the independent clause. All right, and then the last sentence is a compound complex sentence. Consists of 2 independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clause. Okay, so let's take a look at the 4 types of sentences with examples. So the first one is simple sentence. Simple sentence is basically, you know, one thought. I found $1 on the street. That's a simple sentence. She loves to eat chocolate ice cream. The teacher had a conversation with the student's parents. So one thought, one idea, one simple sentence. Now a compound sentence is we take those 2 sentences and we merge them into one sentence using a conjunction. So I found $1 on the street. So this is the conjunction. I went to the candy store. Now if we take this apart, there will be 2 simple sentences. I found $1 on the street. That's one simple sentence. I went to the candy store. That's another simple sentence. We join them together by using so. She loves to eat chocolate cake. She loves to eat chocolate ice cream. She loves to eat chocolate ice cream, but it makes her tummy hurt. So we took 2 simple sentences. We connected them by but, and but is a conjunction that is to show contract. All right, now let's take a look at a complex sentence. So complex sentence is an independent clause and a dependent clause, right? So because I found $1 on the street, I went to the candy store. So that was the result. Going to the candy store was the result of me finding $1 on the street. Even though she loves to eat chocolate ice cream, it makes her tummy hurt. So even though she likes the chocolate ice cream, but her tummy hurts. Now the compound complex sentences are more than one independent clause and more than one dependent clause. So because I found $1 on the street, I went to the candy store and I bought a lollipop. So I found $1 on the street, and then you have more than one dependent clauses. So you have the dependent clause, because I found $1 on the street, then the following events took place. I went to the candy store and I bought, sorry about that, and I bought a lollipop. As much as he loves cats, he hates dogs. All right, now let's take a look at, we have studied the simple sentence and the compound sentence in the beginner course. Today we are going to cover the complex sentence. So the complex sentence is basically a dependent clause and an independent clause. The dependent clause, sometimes a comma separates the clauses. This clause could stand alone. So the independent clause, basically the main clause, and then you have another dependent clause that depends on it. So remove it from the oven. Remove the cake from the oven. So it here, we use it because we use the word cake in the first part of the sentence. But if this was its own sentence, then we will put the cake. Remove the cake from the oven. This is a dependent clause. It stands on its own. Now, the dependent clause, that this one cannot make sense if you say it on its own. The cake is brown. When the cake is brown. When the cake is brown, yeah, so what happens? So we need the independent clause that complete the thought. All right, so today we will talk about the third kind of sentences according to the structure, and that is a complex sentence. A complex sentence has one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. All right, now an independent clause, unlike a dependent clause, can stand alone in a sentence, which is this one, because remove the cake from the oven, that is a perfectly fine sentence. But when the cake is red, that is not. Let's talk about the complex sentence in more details. So as we said, the complex sentence has a dependent clause has an independent clause and a dependent clause, at least one. The dependent clause needs the independent clause, although the independent clause, although the dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but it still cannot stand on its own. Let's take a look at some examples. Bobby was delighted he got a part in the school play, even though the part was a small one. Okay, so the independent clause here is in orange, as you can see it. This is the independent clause. Bobby was delighted he got a part in the school play, because this can stand on its own, and it is a perfect and a complete sentence. But we have the dependent clause here that cannot stand on its own, because even though the part was small, or even though the part was a small one, on its own it wouldn't make sense. So it will need to be connected to the independent clause. Because my porridge had gone cold, I heated it in the microwave. So again, I heated the porridge in the microwave. This is an independent clause. It can stand on its own. But if you take the first part, because my porridge had gone cold, that doesn't make any sense if you use the sentence by itself. Okay? Again, after lots of practice, Josh still struggled to tie his shoes. So after lots of practice can't sound on its own. Josh still struggled to tie his shoelaces. That makes sense on its own. Let's go back to the theater where we watch the ballet. After the storm hit the town, trees lay broken in the street. Okay, so now let's take a look at the complex sentence. We need to connect the dependent clause and the independent clause, and we use something that is called subordinating conjunctions to do that. So what do we need to make a complex sentence? We need a subordinating conjunction. Subordinating conjunctions in complex sentences. The word is used to link an independent clause to the dependent clause. It is called subordinating conjunction. The most common subordinating conjunctions are these ones: although, because, before, even though, if, since, until, and when. Those are the most common subordinating conjunctions. Okay, so let's take a look at the subordinating conjunctions in action. When the cake is brown, remove it from the oven. When. You will definitely lose if you don't try. If. Now, a full list of the coordinating conjunction is here. Those are all the subordinating. The full list of the subordinating conjunctions are here. You can use any of these to make a complex sentence. So this will do it for today, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you next class.